Hey everyone, it's Lydia Benham again with Whole Modern Parent, and today we have a special new Whole Modern Parent expert, Cassie Ballard, and she is with our Seva. Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Lydia. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for coming on and chatting with us.
Absolutely.
So, you guys, our Seva is a beautiful, just I can't tell you the experience, peaceful website, just all about motherhood. And Cassie really kind of addresses some deep conversations around the evolution of it and the transformation. And it's unlike anything that we've seen. So we brought her on board as our expert to kind of walk us through these paths. Cassie, so how did you start our Seva?
Yeah, wow. That's kind of a loaded question, but
Yes.
as we all get into motherhood, we're awakened to the realities. So this passion project of our Seva kind of started in my fertility journey when, I dove in expecting one thing, um, and had a lot of bumps around just fertility in general, and realizing that there was a whole lot under the surface that I just wasn't aware of. And um, I like to call these the unspoken spaces of motherhood. And, these are the conversations that you have with other women that are only revealed to you once you're in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had this idea simmering from our first miscarriage. It was kind of like, okay, whenever I get to the other side, we need to talk about this. We need to bring light to some of the most transformative moments of the process of becoming a mother, becoming a completely new woman. And so that's kind of the essence behind our Seva, is bringing to light the subtleties and the nuances of the transformation into motherhood. So today it looks like a Facebook group. It looks like community with other women, and discussions and brainstorms around how we can kind of transform the dialogue around this transformation process.
Right. And so everyone knows, I just want to, her Facebook group is the Our Seva Motherhood Circle. You can search it in Facebook, and I've joined it, and Michelle's also joined it. And it is a beautiful shared community of women talking about this, like she's saying, transformation. Cassie, can you tell our audience just a little more about the unspoken spaces, in case I think it's very familiar to you as the
Absolutely. Yeah.
drafter of this, but I think sometimes women don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up, because I've been, in it, right? And you kind of start to create your own language around things when you're in like deep processing. But for me, the unspoken spaces are things like shifting identities and maternal mental health and cultural narratives that are supportive or unsupportive. It's things like rites of passage. It's things like um, awakening the inner wisdom within, or tapping into ancient wisdom. It's these layers of, like, the deeper layers. So a lot of the times in our modern culture, I feel like many women kind of bubble on the surface when it comes to dialogue, especially within social media like Instagram. You're scrolling and scrolling, and you're seeing the surface level of people's realities. And I know for myself personally, when I'm in the thick of it, those aren't necessarily the most helpful narratives. You really want to know that there's other people who are in it with you.
Mm-hmm.
And what does in it actually mean? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want to know details. So like I mentioned, this all started with a miscarriage, and it was completely shocking to know that, 1 in 3 women experience miscarriage. And I wanted to know details. I wanted to know what people were feeling, what was their mental state, like what were their bodies doing, like just give me more.
Mhm.
Like don't just tell me 1 in 3 women. It's like, yes, that's great information to have, but like what's the depth behind that particular transformation process? And I realized through this process of now becoming a mother that that surface layer dialogue is essentially what guides all of the narrative around motherhood. It's not until you're either navigating, sleepless nights with the baby that you go scrolling deep for the answers. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like the more truth that we bring to the surface, I think the more women will feel satisfied in the
Mhm.
process, and they'll search less outside of themselves. And there's this steadiness that comes with that inner wisdom. And I'm realizing that once we have the deeper dialogue or discussion around these unspoken spaces, we're able to settle into our own personal rhythms as mothers and as parents so much easier.
Yeah, and I think I mean, something that we talk about like within our community is, and you can tell, for example, just in the postpartum kind of experience, that everyone, gives gifts for the baby, and it's all how's the baby, and people want to come hold the baby. But I think what we forget that either, emotionally, not always just physically, that the mother needs to be held during this process as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we can
Mm-hmm.
see there is some shifting coming around. There's more conversation and a little bit more open dialogue. And I think that that is helping us kind of shift that. But you
Mm-hmm.
do see, and maybe it's because the baby's more socially accepted versus talking about what your day looks like in your Depends after you had your baby.
Right.
Um, but I think that that's also, I mean, that's the connecting part, because it's not that we're not all doing it. It's just that we're not like talking about like and I hate to use this term, but it seems like people have almost made it like the underbelly conversations of what
Mm-hmm.
motherhood looks like. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be something that we don't talk about, because it's very, very real. And
Yeah.
it's also very relatable. And like you're saying, you had questions, like you wanted to know what that looked like. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
moms have those questions.
Absolutely. And I think what I've discovered since the launch of Our Seva back in January, so this had been simmering for a few years before the actual launch. And even when it launched in January, I went into it with this full-hearted intention to really dive into these unspoken spaces and really like bring to light these issues or these layers that I was so desperately wanting more depth with. And in that process of sharing and digging and community building, I realized that what I was actually experiencing was, and I've mentioned this before, but like this transformation process, it's almost like a complete rebirth in who I was as a woman. Um, Rebirth of my partnership with my husband. Like everything was turned upside down and shifted. And I was essentially coming to terms with what that meant and becoming familiar again with what my inner resolution was in regards to all of these different areas of my life. And I think I was searching for answers in the exterior world for a lot of the things that felt really uncomfortable within. So as I continue down this journey, I'm sharing more and more about how you connect to your inner wisdom and how you tap into community and ancient wisdom when you need a little bit more validation or you need rituals or practices to help ground you. So today it's a little bit less about changing the dialogue and more about settling in. and feeling
Yeah.
really comfortable in my own path and my own resolution.
So I think probably, and I know some other mothers might have questions about how do you, what are these unsettling feelings? Like, what does that look like? What did it look like for you in your journey?
Mm. Yeah. Oh, there's so many.
I know that might be a loaded question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What comes to mind is pre-baby, I was very rooted in my career.
Hmm.
And post-baby, career is a back burner conversation. And with placing my priorities in something new, I've had to kind of re-identify myself. I've had to understand what it looks like to manage my time. Like, what does it look like when my passion to do one thing is not in alignment with what I need to be doing?
Hmm.
Motherhood, and it's a this uneasiness, I think, comes from the push and pull feeling of
Yes.
being one thing so concretely and so sure to being something completely different and unsteady and unsure,
Yes.
but knowing that being here is much better than being here. And so I think that unsteadiness that we're speaking to, it comes back to the root of being something completely different than you were before. Whether
Hmm.
that's friendships, relationships with your partners, your careers, your family routines and structures. Like, it's a relearning of
Yes.
everything.
Yes. And I think just like in our culture, and for me, from my experience of motherhood, it's like I have to fight the part of me that wants to hold on and like
Mhm.
recreate like my past existence. And it's so
Right.
hard. And it's even like little things. And like with schedules and different things, it's almost because that's just it's hard to change the past, right? And so
Yeah.
I've almost had to redirect myself in a manner that's really more kind of just open and
Mhm.
accepting of what's coming in versus spending my brain power and energy on getting back to what
Mhm.
what I used to live. I mean, really. So I feel like that's a hard that's the hardest thing, is that it's almost like you're recreating, but then you also have to be able to recreate that need to go back to what's comfortable, because
Yeah.
you're
You know what? When you say the recreation of something that was, I think when we're talking about being uncomfortable in something, I've realized that I actually don't want that anymore.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
that is almost where the discomfort comes from the most, is like, okay, that used to feel so good and
Mhm.
so steady, but it doesn't align with where I'm at right now, and I really don't
Mhm.
want it. So I really have to create something completely new.
Mhm.
And I think it's just uncharted territory, and the uncertainty of what that means that brings that layer of discomfort, um, to the whole process.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like kind of just relinquishing the control and just letting it, because in a lot of regards, especially with like children and wow, we have a pandemic now. I mean, it's like we don't always know what's coming in.
Mm.
So it's almost for me, from my experience, I think one of the biggest things is just allowing and letting.
Mhm.
Because I don't know what's next.
No, no, yeah, and I think I have a toddler now, so she's 2.5, and she is the beautiful daily, minute by minute reminder that we are not in control.
Mhm.
And for someone who's kind of a type A planner, wants to see the line sight to how the next 10 years is going to look, like, not being able to even see what my afternoon is going to look like is a whole new way of releasing control and just being in the moment and
Mm-hmm.
being okay with whatever unfolds.
Right. Well, and I like that you brought up in the moment, because I think a lot of people think of it as just like right in that moment, but it's in the moment in the larger scale of like your
Mhm.
afternoon moment. So this is just what's happening in the afternoon. You
Yep.
might be able to get one or two things done on your list. But that's what it looks like. It's not just like, okay, just for 10 minutes. Because it's,
Yeah, no, and you can even go deeper in saying that this newborn phase is this moment, or
yes, the
you know,
season.
this
Mm-hmm.
season, this um, yeah, this phase. Because when you're in something that feels intense or uncomfortable, it feels like it's never ending. But as we all know, as parents and mothers, that it is all very fleeting, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really starting to understand that now, 2.5 years in. I'm like, okay, I understand that this uncomfortableness, this uncertainty right now, it will pass. So what can I kind of take with me as like the lessons or the certainties and the steadiness from this moment? So it's definitely become a personal practice, and um, using my daughter as like my little guru.
Well, and you know, they say like they teach us more than we teach them. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, in some, and the regard of kind of the motherhood transformation, they really do. And I think it took me a little bit longer to realize that, that like what my kids have given to me
Mm.
has actually kind of carved out my true identity more. So it's like you live in this kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Cassie, you live in this kind of like bubble, and it's
Mm.
almost like the life cycles of a business. Like you're in infancy kind of until you have the responsibility of children. You're still learning, you're still growing, and then once you have kids, I feel like that's the battleground. That's where you really learn what you have inside of you.
Absolutely. And I've realized that my daughter's the reflection of my current state. So if she's having an afternoon that is just manic and there's no controlling her, I know it's probably because my mind is swirling. I'm feeling
Hmm.
unsettled myself. Or if she's having this phase of like rebellion, or, the nose, or the like
Yes.
mind, whatever that like claiming the space phases that happens in motherhood. I realize that I'm kind of doing similar things in my personal transformation at that moment, and I almost can see more reflected back to me if I just watch what she's doing.
Yes.
Yeah, the other day I was scrolling, checking an email or doing something that felt very quick and sly, and just like, okay, let me look real quick. And she goes, "Mama, wake up." I'm like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know they're clever, and they really do. They can call you into the present moment
yeah,
faster than anything, I've noticed.
yeah.
Um, okay, so Cassie, we're going to close this for today. And everyone, we are going to have part 2 of our conversation with Cassie next week. And we're going to dive a little bit more into how you tap into that inner wisdom and what that looks like for the in-between spaces for mamas. So I think we figured out kind of what it looks like as we go through this transformation, why we want to have these deeper conversations today, what the value is in that for us, and really going to a level that is more of the problem versus these smaller symptoms that we see on a day-to-day basis, right, Cassie?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think this idea of the in between is kind of where my heart's at right now, as we all, as a collective, sit in an in between phase.
Yeah. You're
I think
right.
this is where we're all putting our energy and focus right now as parents as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And we are looking forward to finding out more about our inner wisdom next week, Cassie.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you.